As the sun began to set over the city, Diego shuffled into the pharmacy, feeling thoroughly worn out. It had been a long day at the small warehouse where he worked as an assistant. Every peso he earned was precious, especially since that month had been even tighter than usual financially. He was counting every cent, trying hard to stretch his earnings. But this nagging headache just wouldn't quit, so he decided to grab some inexpensive medicine before heading home. While standing in line, Diego's eyes drifted to the elderly gentleman in front of him. The man, with his white hair, clutched a small box of medicine. He had a worried look as he counted a few coins in his shaky hand. After a moment, the old man sighed heavily and placed the medicine back on the counter. "Is everything all right, sir?" Diego asked, his voice instinctively warm. The old man lifted his gaze and managed a faint, tired smile. "Don't worry, son. I just don't have enough for the medicine today. Maybe tomorrow." The pharmacy clerk glanced at Diego expectantly. He looked from the elderly man's trembling hands to his own pocket, where he had just enough money to last until his next paycheck. It wasn't a lot, in fact it was nearly all he had. But without giving it too much thought, Diego took a deep breath and laid his money on the counter. "Could you add his medicine to my bill?" he asked the clerk. The old man's eyes widened in shock. "Please, there's no need." Diego smiled softly. "Don't worry about it. Health comes first." The clerk quickly completed the purchase and handed the medicine to the old man, who accepted it with tears shimmering in his eyes. "God bless you, son. You have no idea what this means to me," the old man whispered, his voice laden with gratitude. Diego nodded, trying to hide his own emotions. He picked up his medicine and left the pharmacy, unaware that this small act of kindness would soon turn his world upside down. In the days that followed, life resumed its usual rhythm. Diego woke up early, worked tirelessly at the warehouse, and returned home each night, weary and without much fanfare. But one afternoon, as he was organizing boxes in the storeroom, he heard his boss call out to him in an unusually serious tone. "Diego, there's someone here who wants to speak with you." Diego wiped his hands on his pants, feeling a mix of nerves and curiosity as he approached the counter of the store. There stood a well-dressed man with a firm yet friendly gaze. "You're the young man from the pharmacy, aren't you?" Diego frowned, puzzled. "Excuse me, sir. Do I know you?" The man gave a warm smile and extended his hand. "My name's Alejandro. Salinas, the gentleman you helped at the pharmacy, that's my father. He wants to see you." Diego's heart skipped a beat. He never imagined that the humble old man he assisted was connected to someone so important. Without a clear idea of what lay ahead, he nodded and followed Alejandro to the car parked outside. Little did he know, he was on the brink of a life-altering surprise. Sliding into Alejandro's car, Diego felt a flutter of unease in his stomach. The interior was pristine, luxurious, worlds apart from anything he was used to. The scent of new leather mixed with the soft strains of instrumental music from the radio, creating an almost surreal atmosphere. He glanced out the window, trying to keep his anxiety in check. "My father spoke a lot about you." Alejandro broke the silence, his voice calm. "You have no idea the impact you made that day." Diego shifted in his seat, a bit embarrassed. "I just did what I thought was right." Alejandro's smile widened slightly. "And that's exactly what makes it so special." As the car moved through the streets, they entered a neighborhood unlike any Diego had seen before, filled with grand houses and manicured gardens. When they pulled up in front of a mansion with towering iron gates, Diego's heart raced. The gates opened smoothly, and they drove up to the main entrance. An elderly man sat in a rocking chair on the porch, eyes fixed on the sky, lost in thought. At the sound of the car, he turned his head slowly. "Father, we brought Diego," Alejandro announced as he stepped out of the vehicle. The old man looked up, and a genuine smile spread across his face. It was the same man from the pharmacy, yet here, amidst the grandeur, he seemed entirely different. Clad in an elegant sweater, he exuded a serene strength. "My boy," he said, reaching out his trembling hand. "Diego." With respect, Diego approached and shook his hand, feeling the warmth and gratitude in that simple gesture. "Are you feeling better?" he asked. genuinely concerned. The old man nodded slowly. Gratitude etched across his face. "Thank you, not just for the medicine, but for the gesture," he said, his voice soft but strong. Diego, caught off guard, furrowed his brow. The old man pointed to an empty chair beside him. "Sit down, son. There's something I want to share with you." Diego sat, a mix of curiosity and apprehension swirling inside him. He had no idea what to expect as the old man began his story. "When you saw me at the pharmacy, I wasn't just a sick old man. I was testing something," he revealed, his voice carrying a hint of mystery that piqued Diego's interest. "Years ago," he explained, he had built a company from nothing, overcoming countless hardships and starting over more times than he could remember. Today, he had more than he'd ever dreamed of. But one thing always weighed on him: understanding the true character of the people around him. How to know who truly deserved a chance. His eyes lit up with emotion as he paused, gathering his thoughts. "After many years," he continued, "I decided to do something different. I wanted to find someone with a good heart, someone who would help without expecting anything in return." Diego felt a shiver run down his spine as the significance of the old man's words sank in. "That day," the man said intently, "you didn't know who I was. You could have ignored me. You could have kept your money, but you chose to help. That gesture showed me who you are." Alejandro, the old man's son, watched silently, pride evident in his expression. "And so, Diego," the old man offered warmly, "I want to give you an opportunity. Not as a mere employee, but as someone I can invest in, teach, and guide." Diego's breath caught in his throat. It felt like a dream, too good to be true. "But I have no experience in big companies," Diego admitted, uncertainty creeping into his voice. The old man chuckled gently. "Experience can be learned. Character, though, is innate." Diego glanced at Alejandro, who nodded with a reassuring smile. "My father never misjudges when he believes in someone," Alejandro added. Overwhelmed, Diego felt a lump form in his throat. All his life he had yearned for an opportunity like this, one that always seemed just out of reach. And now here it was, right in front of him. With eyes glistening with newfound hope, Diego made the only choice that made sense. "I accept," he said, his voice steady and determined. The old man smiled, enveloping Diego's hands in his own. "Welcome to our family, my son." In that moment, Diego understood that his life would never be the same. Each day at the company was a fresh challenge, a chance to learn something new. He immersed himself in contracts, negotiations, and slowly, piece by piece, began to grasp the intricate workings of the business world. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that not everyone welcomed him with open arms. But Diego was determined, and he knew he was in the right place at last. Within the corridors of the company, Diego often felt like an outsider. The wary glances, the whispered conversations in the hallways, they were a part of his daily life. Yet he never let it get to him. Diego was there for one reason: to grow, not to win a popularity contest. One late afternoon, as Diego was buried in documents at his desk, Ramirez, one of the firm's directors, approached him. Now, Ramirez was a seasoned veteran in the company, a man everyone respected, though Diego had never quite felt any warmth from him. "Diego, I need a favor," Ramirez said, placing a sealed envelope on the desk. Diego glanced at the envelope, then back at Ramirez. "Of course, Mr. Ramirez. How can I help?" There was a smile on Ramirez's face, but something in his eyes unsettled Diego. "I need you to take this contract to the central office for a signature. It's urgent," Ramirez explained. As Diego picked up the envelope and gave the contract a quick look, he noticed something that didn't sit right. It appeared to be a standard agreement, but there was a small detail, almost invisible, that caught his attention. "Has Mr. Alejandro approved this contract already?" Diego asked, raising his eyes to meet Ramirez's. For a split second, Ramirez's smile faltered. Yes, everything's in order. It just needs the final signature." But Diego's gut told him otherwise. How could a man as experienced as Ramirez overlook something so basic? Why ask Diego to deliver the contract without first checking with Alejandro? I'd prefer to confirm with Mr. Alejandro before proceeding, Diego said, firmly closing the envelope. Ramirez's face tightened. There's no need to bother him. Just do as I asked. But Diego stood his ground. I'd rather ensure everything's in order before moving forward. Ramirez narrowed his eyes, but didn't argue further. He turned on his heel and left the room. Diego knew something was off. Clutching the envelope, he made his way straight to Alejandro's office. Alejandro was deep in paperwork when Diego stepped in, placing the contract on his desk. Have you approved this? Diego inquired. Alejandro frowned, picking up the document. As he began to read, his expression shifted. His eyes grew serious as he quickly flipped through the pages. Who gave you this? He asked, his voice. Stern, Ramirez, Diego replied. He said everything was in order and it just needed the final signature. Alejandro's gaze darkened, and Diego knew he'd done the right thing by trusting his instincts. Alejandro took a deep breath, gripping the contract as if anchoring himself against a storm. If this document had been signed, our company would have lost millions of pesos. This contract unfairly favors the other company. Diego felt a chill run down his spine. Does that mean? Alejandro met his gaze unwavering. It means Ramirez is trying to deceive us. The next morning, Alejandro called a meeting with the entire board. His father was there too, sitting quietly, but with eyes that missed nothing. Ramirez strode in, brimming with confidence, until he saw the contract laid out on Alejandro's table. His face turned ashen. Care to explain this? Alejandro asked, sliding the document toward him. Ramirez tried to hold it together. It was just a drafting error, nothing serious. An error that would cost us millions. Alejandro's father spoke for the first time, his voice low but carrying the weight of authority. Ramirez swallowed hard. I didn't know. You knew, Alejandro countered. And you tried to use Diego to get this signed without our authorization. All eyes turned to Diego. He stood his ground, though his heart raced. I just wanted to make sure everything was correct, he said. Alejandro's father allowed a small smile. You've saved this company from a huge problem, Diego, proving you're exactly the kind of person we need here. That very day, Ramirez was shown the door. Diego, once seen as an outsider, was now regarded with newfound respect. Days turned into weeks, and the atmosphere had shifted. The suspicious glances were gone. Whispers in the hallways were now about how Diego had averted a massive fraud. Despite the attention, Diego stayed focused on his work, knowing he still had much to learn. One afternoon, Alejandro walked into Diego's office, a serious expression on his face. Diego, I want you to handle an important negotiation. Diego blinked in surprise. Me? Alejandro nodded, placing a file on the desk. It's a deal with a foreign company. It's a big opportunity, but also a challenge. I want to see how you handle it. Diego felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He'd never tackled a negotiation at this level. But instead of hesitating, he took a deep breath and picked up the file. I'll do it. Alejandro had that knowing smile as he looked at Diego. I knew. You'd say that, he said, almost like he could see the future. And so began a whirlwind of days for Diego. He pored over every page of the contract, digging into the company they were about to negotiate with, crafting a strategy that would make everything fall perfectly into place. He understood the stakes. Everything had to go smoothly. Then came the day of the meeting. For the first time, Diego found himself buttoning up a suit. He was hyper-aware of how he looked, feeling the weight of first impressions. Across the conference room, Alejandro and his father stood by, ready to jump in if needed, but they'd made it clear. This was Diego's moment to shine. The foreign business people started the meeting, laying out their terms with the kind of seasoned directness that comes from years of experience. They were sharp, aiming to get the upper hand, but Diego paid close attention, dissecting their every word. When it was his turn, he spoke with a confidence that surprised even himself. He laid out why his company's proposal was fair, beneficial for everyone involved. He answered their questions with calm precision, skillfully addressed their objections, and when they tried to push him, he stood firm. The atmosphere shifted. Diego saw it in their eyes. They were beginning to see him differently. After hours of back and forth, the deal was struck, and it was favorable for his company. As the executives filed out of the room, Alejandro clapped a hand on Diego's shoulder. "You did an excellent job." Alejandro's father, too, approached with a prideful smile. "You reminded me of myself when I was your age." A wave of warmth washed over Diego. He'd shown everyone he belonged there. That night, he got called into the office of the family patriarch. The elder leaned on his cane, eyes steady. "Diego, since you got here, you've shown you're someone we can trust," he began, his voice carrying the weight of years. "The company needs people like you, people with character and integrity." Diego nodded, at a loss for words. "That's why I want to offer you something more than a job." The old man handed over an envelope. "Starting today, I want you to be part of the company's leadership." Diego's eyes widened in disbelief. "Sir, He was cut off gently, but firmly. "You've earned it." With trembling hands, Diego took the envelope. Inside was his new contract, a step up with more responsibility, and beyond that, proof that his life had shifted forever. News of Diego's promotion spread like wildfire through the company, marking the start of a new chapter in his life. Diego had come a long way. He wasn't just the young guy who had once saved the company from financial disaster. He was now a respected member of the leadership team. People who used to eye him with suspicion now treated him with respect, some even with admiration. But Diego didn't let any of that get to his head. He was still the first to arrive every morning, eager to learn every facet of the business, proving day in and day out that he was worth the trust placed in him. One afternoon, while Diego was buried in paperwork in his new office, Alejandro's father walked in unexpectedly. The older man had a thoughtful look on his face and a steaming cup of coffee in his hand. He sat down across from Diego with a warm smile. "How are you feeling, son?" he asked. Diego set down the papers, smiled back, and nodded, full of gratitude and a thirst for more knowledge. The elder nodded approvingly. "That's what I like to hear," he said, pausing for a moment. "I want to share a piece of advice, something I've learned over the years." Diego leaned forward, ready to soak in every word. In business, people will always look for intelligence, skills, and results. But what truly sets great leaders apart is integrity. Diego listened intently, the weight of the words sinking in. No matter how much you grow, how much you earn, or how powerful you become, if you lose your essence, if you stop being the kind of person who helped an old man at the pharmacy without expecting anything in return, then you've lost the most valuable thing. A lump formed in Diego's throat. He knew that these words were more than just advice. They were a warning about the kind of man he needed to strive to be. "I won't forget," he promised sincerely. The old man smiled, satisfied. "Then I know this company is in good hands." As time went on, Diego grew not just into a successful businessman, but into a fair and admired leader. He never forgot where he started and always extended a hand to those who just needed a chance, like he once did. He launched programs to train inexperienced young people, supported social projects, and upheld the philosophy that had carried him this far. Success isn't measured only in money, but in the ability to do good when no one is watching. Once upon a time, in a little town where everyone knew each other's name, there was a young man named Alex. Now, Alex wasn't just any young fellow. He had this heart so big, you might wonder how it fit inside his chest. One chilly afternoon, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Alex found himself at the local pharmacy. He wasn't there for himself. He was picking up a prescription for his grandmother, who had been feeling under the weather. As he waited in line, he noticed an elderly man standing at the counter. His shoulders slumped, and his eyes clouded with worry. The man was counting coins, his hands trembling slightly, trying to pay for his medication. Without a second thought, Alex stepped forward. "Excuse me, sir," he said softly, reaching into his pocket. "Let me help you with that." The older man looked up, a mixture of surprise and gratitude washing over his face. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. That moment, as simple as it seemed, was the start of something much bigger. Alex, with his unassuming generosity, had planted a seed that would grow beyond his wildest dreams. Years passed, and the boy who once helped a stranger in need found himself rising to prominence, becoming one of the most influential figures in the country. People would ask him about his success, about how he managed to reach such heights, and Alex, with a knowing smile, would always tell them, "It's not about where you start, but who you choose to be along the way." The truth was, life had thrown Alex a few curveballs, taking him down unexpected paths. But through it all, his character remained his compass, guiding him true. And that's how Alex, with a heart as expansive as the sky on that long-ago evening, crafted a life of purpose and impact simply by staying true to who he was.